Namaste and welcome to our continuing series, The Life Divine with Ranganath. Today we are starting from page number 318, last paragraph, all the unexplained processes of nature.
As is our usual process, we will read out to you the summary of what he is saying in the previous para, so we get the link and the continuity. Okay, so he has been hypothesizing, and the problem he is facing when he looks at the physical world is that there are two contradictory things. One, there is a law that is operating, and a fixity and a operating in a very, very regular and fixed manner. The law is very simple. Each species is only creating its own. Okay, for instance, as we discussed last time, dogs are producing only dogs. They don't produce cats. So there is you know what's going to happen. Even in the physical world, there is a law and a fixity. You can go to such an extent that I can tell you tomorrow at what time the sun is going to rise, because I have seen the process and I have studied it and I know exactly what's going to happen. To such an extent that we can even 200 years from now, what solar eclipse and what lunar eclipse will take place, we can say. They can even forecast 75 years ahead when the Halley's comet will come back to you. Why? Because there is order and law. On the other hand, there seems to be also a variation and a chance. Because suppose cats and kittens, they give several kittens at the same time, or even dogs, 4, 5, and each one is different. So there is a variation as well as a... So, from where is the variation coming? From where is the law coming? So, this was the problem. So, he says we shall make a hypothesis. That the hypothesis is that there is a consciousness which is, and a force which is conscious of itself and is producing. On that basis, he has made the hypothesis. So, now I'll read out to you all the unexplained. I'm reading to you what we have to read today, because he has mentioned hypothesis and we will discuss the hypothesis. All the unexplained processes of nature would find their meaning and their place if this hypothesis proved to be tenable. So, we'll come back to it and say what is the unexplained processes and what is the hypothesis. We'll discuss it when we come back to after we finish the para. Energy seems to create substance, but in reality, as existence is inherent in consciousness force, so also substance would be inherent in energy. The energy, a manifestation of the force; substance, a manifestation of a secret existence. But as it is a spiritual substance, it would not be apprehended by the material sense until it is given by energy the forms of matter seizable by that sense. One begins to understand also how arrangement of design, quantity and number can be a base for the manifestation of quality and property. For design, quantity and number are powers of existence, substance. Quality and property are powers of the consciousness and its force that reside in the existence. They can then be made manifest and operative by rhythm and process of substance. The growth of the tree out of the seed would be accounted for, like all other similar phenomena, by the indwelling presence of what we have called the real idea. The infinite self-perception of the significant form, the living body of its power of existence that has to emerge from its own self-compression in energy substance, would be carried internally in the form of the seed, carried in the occult consciousness involved in that form, and would naturally evolve out of it. There would be no difficulty either in understanding on this principle how infinitesimals of a material character like the gene and the chromosome can carry in them psychological elements to be transmitted to the physical form that has to emerge from the human seed. It would be at bottom on the same principle in the objectivity of matter as that which we find in our subjective experience. For we see that the subconscious physical carries in it a mental psychological content, impressions of past events, habits, fixed mental and vital formations, fixed forms of character, and sends them up by an occult process to the waking consciousness, thus originating or influencing many activities of our nature. So, all the unexplained processes of nature. So, what are the unexplained processes of nature? One is, if you combine hydrogen and oxygen, you get water. How? Two gases are producing a liquid. So that's a very big problem. Another problem, one tiny seed is producing a whole tree. How to explain that?
And fruits and flowers and everything.
So this is a mystery. We don't know how it happens. Also, science also has the same problem. Suppose you take any one element and you see that what distinguishes one element from another element, say let's say silver and gold or uranium and platinum. What is the difference? Only the number of electrons around the nucleus. And the electrons are all the same. It's a particle of energy, either negative or positive. And I think electrons are all positive. I've forgotten my science. So anyway, so they are charged particles. But they are all the same. So if you add one small electron, the character of the thing changes. So this is the theory of alchemy which came up in 200, 300 or 400 years ago. It is theoretically possible to do that. If you know how to do it, you just add one and you can get it. Theoretically possible. Practically, it's not worth trying, because if you try to turn iron into gold, the process will be costlier than the product. So it's not worth doing. But it is possible to do that. So now what is the hypothesis that he is talking about? We explained the unexplained processes. The hypothesis that he is starting with is, so I am reading the summary of the previous one.
Yes.
And then we will go to this one.
It will be in continuation.
So Srebda is saying, we then theorize, Srebda is exploring what could be the possible explanation for all these things. So, we then make a theory, we then theorize that a consciousness and will has created the universe, but has hidden itself in it and intends to evolve out of its own apparent opposite. This is a theory that he is starting with. Okay? So, it's clear, I think. A consciousness and a force. Of course, in spiritual experience, you know that it is there. But when you are trying to convince others who don't have the spiritual experience, you have to start with a theory, a theorem, or a hypothesis. So, the hypothesis that he is going to examine, let us say there is a consciousness and a will, or consciousness and force, Chit Shakti, okay, is creating the universe. And creating the universe and hiding itself in the universe is the opposite of spirit. So, it is hiding itself there. Okay, so in its apparent opposite. The inconscience below, the inconscience below and the consciousness above would be understandable. That's what he's saying in this para. So, it's a very small thing. So, now we come back to our hypothesis. And the hypothesis is this, that consciousness is creative of the universe with its force. Now, you can use other terms. You can say consciousness is Purusha. Okay, and Purusha is consciousness, and when you speak of consciousness, you seem to have a choice, and choice means you can go either this way or this way. So that is the element. Consciousness gives you the possibility of a variation. And there is force on the other hand. Now force is something mechanical and unconscious, and you can say that it will work in a mechanical manner. So when you see order and law, it is a force that is doing it. It's a combination of consciousness and force that is producing in the physical world law as well as variation. So this is what he is saying. This is what he is examining now. Okay? So all the unexplained processes of nature would find their meaning and their place if this hypothesis proved to be tenable. He is still saying, if my theory is possible and it can stand. It's ground. Okay, so energy seems to create substance. Now we'll have to look at the words what he's saying. Energy seems to create substance. Energy is force. Okay, when you are thinking, you are talking of the manifestation, the highest is creating all these different planes of consciousness. It produces first from supermind, overmind, intuitive mind, element mind, higher mind, then it produces mind plane of consciousness, then it produces energy plane of consciousness, and finally you have matter plane of consciousness. Matter also is consciousness, but hidden consciousness. So he's saying energy seems to create substance.
But here, like, energy is capitalized. So does he mean
universal energy?
Universal energy. It's not ether.
No.
Okay.
It's not ether. Certainly not. It is
Certainly.
the energy. Prana. Okay. And energy, when he's putting E cap, okay, he is meaning universal energy. Now, universal energy creates energisms. Okay. We have muscular energy, we have electrical energy, we have mechanical energy, we have storm is an energy, lightning is an energy, but there is something, a universal. You don't see energy as a principle. You see only the effects of energy. You see the sun rising, you see the tides coming. They are all functions of energy. They are not energy themselves. They are manifestations of energy.
Like, even when we say the life principle, we don't see the life principle, we see life.
That's right.
And its forms.
Exactly in the same way. Like also you can say electricity. We don't see electricity or experience it, but if you are in the spiritual plane of consciousness, you know what it is. But at our level, we have got instruments of only senses, so we don't see electricity, but we see the effects of electricity. We can use it as a heater, we can use it as a stove, you can use it as for your computer. You can see the results of energy. Okay, so energy seems to create substance. Srenda is very, very careful with his language. Seems to create substance. What is substance? Physical matter.
Physical matter.
Okay, so that is substance. And Srenda uses two words which we will discuss here. When he says substance, he means material matter. Substance, matter. Stone is substance. Okay, flesh is substance. Computer is substance. Table is substance. Everything is substance.
Anything tangible.
Anything tangible, verifiable, touchable. And very, very
perceived by the senses.
Open to the senses. Correct. So now, but this same substance can become very subtle. As ice is solid and it can become water, it can become water vapor. But this principle also, when this matter becomes the subtlest of substance, he calls it existence. Okay? Sat. That's what he calls it. So, now we see what he's saying. With this background, we will see. Energy seems to create substance. But in reality, as existence is inherent in consciousness force. Now, he is talking of the highest level. Existence is inherent in consciousness force. So at the highest level, you have Satchidananda. You have to picture to yourself what is Satchidananda. Satchidananda is first of all Sat. It is a substance which is absolutely subtle. And in it is one with consciousness as well as force. And Ananda also. But he is not discussing Ananda here because the chapter is cosmic determinations and indeterminable. So, he is not bringing Ananda into the picture right now. So, he is discussing there is a substance which is conscious of itself and it's also got the power to mold anything itself with its knowledge. Knowledge is a consciousness. So, this is what he is saying here. But in reality, as existence, he has gone to the highest level. Existence is inherent in consciousness force. So also, substance would be inherent in energy. So, energy, in fact, science is telling you that. Matter is nothing but energy. So, in substance there is energy, and in energy also there is subtle substance. Okay? So, this is what he is saying. Now we proceed further. So, the energy is a manifestation of the force. the force is the highest level, and energy as we experience it here is nothing but the force, Shakti. And Shakti takes many forms, and at this level, at the physical level, the level 1, what we call normally the manifested world, it becomes energy. He is calling it energy. Okay, so a manifestation of the force. Substance, a manifestation of secret existence. So he is giving you the correspondences. Secret existence is Sat. Sat is subtle substance. In fact, it is subtlest of substance. And that becomes matter here. Okay? So, secret existence, Sat, it becomes, when it manifests down, it becomes matter. Okay? And substance, a manifestation of secret existence. Energy, a manifestation of force. So, force is Shakti, which can be spiritual force. And when it comes down here, it takes on the form of energy as we know it. Okay? So, but energy as we know it can be used only for certain things. But someone who is like Sri Aurobindo, he is sitting there, he can use his Shakti for anything he wants. He can direct that Shakti to determine events in Turkey. He can help the Sinn Féin movement in Ireland.
Right.
He can do what he wants with it. He can determine things in the Second World War. He has been doing that. Okay, so that is different. But energy, as we understand it here, science has to a certain extent understood how to use energy. We know how to extract energy from matter. We know how to extract energy from sunlight. We know how to extract energy from wind. So we have learned that. So this is energy at the lower level that becomes spiritual force at the highest level, which can be used for anything by yogi. The energy, a manifestation of force. But substance, a manifestation of secret existence. But as it is a spiritual substance, what he means is, it's the subtlest of substance. It is spiritual, not material. It would not be apprehended by the material senses. Because it is subtle, our senses are open only to gross things. So we don't see it. Until it is given by energy, the forms of matter, seizable by the sense. So energy, Shakti, the plane of prana, is creating forms which are material. Then we can see the material forms. Okay? He's saying the same thing as science is saying, but in a slightly different way. Energy and matter are the same in science. He's saying the same thing, but he's saying that in the involution, energy is creating matter. It is not that matter is creating energy and mind. It is the other way around. Okay? So, now he's saying, one begins to understand how also arrangement of design, quantity and number can be a base for the manifestation of quality and property. So, we'll discuss this a little bit. Okay? We'll take two examples. Take oxygen, which has got 8 electrons around it. Okay? I add 2 more, or I take out 7, it becomes hydrogen with only 1. So, quantity is determining quality. Okay? Now I come to color. Okay? Color is usually nothing but the vibration, okay, is what is called the frequency. You measure it in megahertz. So, frequency determines the color. If I change the frequency, red will become blue. But the vibration is the same. So, the vibration being the same, I only change the number of the frequency. From 50 megahertz, I take it to 60 megahertz. Blue becomes red becomes violet, becomes green. So, this is what he's saying, how quantity determines quality and property. Okay? So, it can become silver, it can become gold, it can become uranium, it can become platinum. Whatever you want, it can change only by changing basically it's a reshuffling and recombination of the same thing, electrons or frequency of vibration. Okay, so.
But I mean, right now there are so many things happening in the genetic studies and at the DNA level where they are trying to replace the DNA to replicate it in a human being. But I feel it cannot do it in its full efficiency because it cannot incorporate the consciousness, right? It can do the design quantity and number and everything it can do, but that element of consciousness, I feel it would be a very mechanical way of bringing about consciousness
Yeah,
into
but
it.
can you do it or not is the question. Okay.
Like they are doing researches
Yes,
now,
that's
like
right.
like
So, I
stem
don't-
cell research and things like that. But that consciousness, which the original,
Yeah, but remember one
form.
thing, Nili, consciousness is there even in matter in a hidden way.
Right.
Okay, so
so now these researchers are now
At a
bringing
material
about,
level.
they are bringing about that consciousness
Yes.
in material way.
yes,
Okay.
so
Because sometimes this artificial intelligence, that's where the controversy comes, right? Like, how will they take artificial intelligence is all mechanized? How will they take into element consciousness, energy of the most subtlest
this is
form?
a problem which will be, we can discuss it a little bit because it's very, very relevant now to
Yeah.
what is happening. Artificial intelligence, AI as they call it, okay, it has already become fantastic, and there is what is called a biofeedback. Okay, you design the computer in such a way there is a capacity to learn. It goes, suppose you make you need a vehicle to move on the moon, so you invent a vehicle, small vehicle with 6 wheels, and these wheels are not fixed, they are movable. So when it comes to a rock, it knows how to go over it. Now when the problem is there is a feedback, and the computer also finds a solution.
Right.
Okay, so the capacity to learn is there in a robot. The capacity to learn.
Right.
That is why people are frightened. That
That
will
they
the-
will surpass us.
Yes. So these are things which will unfold in future, and so we don't know exactly what will happen. But
And I guess a lot of these things are based on algorithms. And I feel those algorithms would tap into the subtleness of consciousness. And I guess maybe somewhere the bridge can happen. Who knows? It's a far-fetched thinking, but
we can create a robot. In fact, nowadays they are using robots for industry very much. But even in restaurants, okay, there are robots which come to you and take down your order, and they'll go back and fulfill your order. Okay, and you can give even, of course, you can nowadays even talk to your
Talk to
computer,
your
and it'll,
computer,
so
yes.
that also is there. So it'll recognize your voice and answer you also. So all
Yeah.
these type of things are happening. I mean, but one question remains. I can create a robot. I can create a metal framework looking like a man or a lady. Okay, I can put an energy, I can put a battery into it which supplies the energy, the vital
Right.
energy. I can put a computer into it which will supply the brain. Okay, now this will act like but is there a soul in it?
soul and life force. Like
Life force is there.
life force is there.
Life force is the battery,
Battery.
the electricity. The vital in you is nothing but energy.
Right.
And the battery is energy.
Energy.
That's what. So that is the thing. So now, the question arises, nature is producing a body.
Right.
Okay, it produces a cat, it produces a human being, it produces you. When does the psychic enter the body? So, spiritual knowledge tells you that it enters sometimes as soon as the body comes out of the womb. Okay, sometimes it comes in after a certain time. Sometimes it comes into the womb itself. Okay, it can also happen that no psychic being enters the body. That also happens.
In Ayurveda told,
Huh?
in Ayurveda, Navame Tejam, when complete house is ready in the womb, that time psychic is entered.
Yeah.
So during the labor pain, when labor pain starts, psychic enters.
But there is not a law. As I told you just now, it can happen at different times. It can even, there is one particular case where at the time of conception, the psychic knew that it is entering the body at that time, when it's just even a cell. Okay, so many possibilities are there.
Babies choose the parents. When soul choose the parents, mother is taught in prenatal education to
Yeah,
the-
but the soul chooses when it is developed.
Yes.
But what about a cat or a dog? It's not a soul. It's a divine presence. So at that time there is no choice. The choice comes when the psychic is developed. Okay. Then you choose your own place. Okay.
And even like in humans also, that takes a long time for them to choose
Yes.
when to come.
Yeah.
This preparation time, before 3 years, before 5 years in Vedas to conceive.
Sure.
In Ayurveda, it is 3 years before the conception.
Sri Aurobindo says there is no fixed period, but in earthly time, he says it is around 2 years.
2 years.
Around 2 years.
And only that is the season for conception.
Huh?
Season for conception. In nature, there is a season of trees and plants to plant. We have to choose the season.
Yeah, but different things are conceived at different times.
Hour and different, there is a different season. For animal also different season, humanity. And for human, it is a season for spring season. And it is for only 2 days in whole year. It is written in Ayurveda.
But even Ayurveda is also a growing science. So it will also evolve, and I don't know. And also when we're talking about that aspect where you're saying that the AI does not have a soul, but Sri Aurobindo says like even in a lifetime of a human being, the soul can, like withdraw itself, like the psychic being also gets veiled and things like that. Because sometimes, we attune to forces which sort of veil our psychic being, and that
The psychic is always veiled. The psychic is always veiled with the body, vital and life. It is deep inside you. It is always veiled. But when it comes out, it's a huge experience. Okay. But when your consciousness escapes and goes up, the psychic being is inside you. But when you go up, you go to the self. That's a different thing. Your essential consciousness comes out of the body-mind life. Now the body-mind life is only a machine. Okay. So the question comes up, can a soul enter also into a robot? Because nature is producing your body. Man is producing the robot. What's the basic difference? So can a soul enter into a robot? These are questions which I can't answer. And I don't know, we have to see about.
Maybe it is possible, because if a conscious being is probably developing a robot, it might be a different kind of a robot altogether. Because it depends, like...
So these are questions which we don't have any immediate answers. But that's the reason why people are getting frightened. That AI can it start lording it over human beings? Can it become masters of human beings? We don't know all these things. But maybe before that, the supramental man will come.
Yes.
And
save us.
So, let's get back to our text. So, quantity. We were discussing quantity and quality. Okay. So, for design, quantity and number are powers of existence, substance. Now, note that. Existence, substance. Existence at the highest level, substance at the lowest level, same thing. Okay. Quality and property are powers of the consciousness and its force that reside in the existence. So both are there, quality and quantity. So he is relating what to what. He is saying quantity is something mechanical, so it belongs to existence, substance. And quality is related to consciousness. Okay? You are either generous or you are miserly, or you are kind or you are cruel. These things all are questions of consciousness. So it is related to consciousness, Chit Shakti. But what is your height? Okay? What is your house? What is your weight? These all belong to the quantity. So they belong to substance, matter. Okay? That's what he's saying. Very interesting what he's saying.
And I feel the two are constantly playing with each other to
and that's
match each other.
Yes,
yeah.
That is Purusha Prakriti. Purusha is consciousness and Prakriti is force. And they are always playing with each other. In Savitri also you have the same. Okay, exchanging
the secret knowledge,
eyesight. Okay,
yeah.
Glances they are exchanging with each other. They're playing.
Like dark and light are their eyes interchanged.
That's right. Okay, so there's a constant play of Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, So this is what he's saying. So now we come to its force reside in the egg. They can then be made manifest and operative by rhythm and a process of substance. So substance itself can, because it hides consciousness in it, it can be done. Now you can understand how a chromosome which is physical can hide in itself psychological characteristics. In heredity, a father who is going to produce a son or a daughter, physical features may very well resemble. Sometimes it's a combination of mother and father. Sometimes it's more prominent towards the father, sometimes more prominent towards the mother. Okay? Then, and that's a whole science of genetics, which is altogether a different subject. But psychological characteristics also are transmitted. Okay? So this is the interesting part. Okay? We know, for instance, that things like epilepsy and other things, okay, or hemophilia, or what is it called? Homophilia. Okay? Homophilia is a disease which existed with royals. That means when you get a cut, the body does not know how to heal itself. It goes on bleeding. This is a strange biological disease. And this is transmitted. This is transmitted down. So heredity can transmit physical characteristics and illnesses also. We know that illnesses also get transmitted. Okay? There is one family here in the ashram where the male child doesn't last long. He dies quite young. Okay? By the age of 20 or so, sometimes they die. Okay? So this is transmitted also. But it can also be psychological characteristics also are transmitted. So that's the interesting part. And you can understand because he is relating quantity and quality to that. Quantity, a function of force and matter. Quality, a attribute of consciousness and psychology. Okay, so the growth of the tree out of the seed would be accounted for, like all other similar phenomena, by the indwelling presence of what we have called the real idea. Okay, so now we have discussed real idea long ago in the supramental chapters, but the real idea is what you would call the blueprint of anything. Okay, the plan that is made. So in the supermind, all that it is going to produce in the physical world is there already planned. Just like an architect doesn't, when he wants to make a building, he doesn't go about amassing bricks. First he makes a plan, a blueprint of what he wants to do. And sometimes he even corrects that. So when he has a clear idea, he puts it down on paper and he makes a blueprint of this is what I'm going to produce. This is what Srimba calls the real idea. And he is calling it a real idea because it's an idea that it's abstract, but it's going to produce a reality. At our level, our ideas can become realities, but they can also become not real. They need not manifest also. But in the supermind, what idea is there, what blueprint is there, is sure to manifest. That's why it's called
at the supramental level,
yeah,
not at our level.
That's right. Real idea is only in the supermind. Okay? So, that's what he's calling supermind. Real idea.
But is there an imprint of the real idea in the material? That's also there, right?
The real idea becomes a reality in the physical world.
In the physical world.
The blueprint of the Taj Mahal on paper and abstract becomes a real physical Taj Mahal. Okay, so the infinite self-perception of the significant form, the living body of its power of existence that has to emerge from its own self-compression in energy substance would be carried internally in the form of the seed, carried in the occult consciousness involved in that form, and would naturally evolve out of it. So, he is using the word self-compression. Okay? We know that the chromosome contains all the elements of what is going to be manifested. The RNA and the DNA. There is a whole cycle and they have uh, I forget the word now, but there is a genetic code, okay? And for instance, man, about 34,000 units are there, which determines all the features in man. And all these so many thousand things are all compressed into that one cell. And not only cell, but even in the chromosome. And in the chromosome, this DNA and RNA determine everything that you are going to become. That's the real idea. It becomes a fact in the physical world. Okay, so so Srendra is saying that that contains also, and the form contains all this. The cell is the physical part, and all the characteristics, physical characteristics as well as psychological characteristics are there in the cell. So there is substance and consciousness. So at the highest level, what is subtle substance, which is existence, and consciousness is in it, becomes in the physical world the same phenomena is happening. Okay, matter, the cell is containing the psychological characteristics. What's happening there is happening also here in a gross manner. Okay, that's what it's saying. So there would be no difficulty either in understanding on this principle how infinitesimals of a material character like the gene and the chromosome can carry in them psychological elements to be transmitted to the physical form that has to emerge from the human seed. It would be at bottom on the same principle in the objectivity of matter as that which we find in our subjective experience. Okay? Objectively, what is being transmitted, similarly, subjective also is being transmitted. For we see that the subconscious physical carries in it a mental psychological content, impressions of past events, habits, fixed mental and vital formations, fixed forms of character, and sends them up by an occult process to the waking consciousness, thus originating or influencing many activities of our nature. What he's saying in this last bit is very interesting. We'll have a quick look before we close for today. So what he's saying is that suppose you are going from here to the ashram, okay? It takes 5 minutes to do that. Whatever you are experiencing on the way, consciously or unconsciously, gets recorded in your subconscious. Okay? A dog is barking in the street, you don't pay any attention to it. But it goes and lodges itself in your subconscious. And these things all come up. So everything that is there is getting absorbed in you, and they can also come up. This is one of the difficulties of yoga, that all that has happened in your past lives is all there, and all those limitations keep on coming up to bother you. Okay? So this is what he's saying. Let's look at the sentence carefully. Okay? For we see, I am reading from there. For we see that the subconscious physical carries in it a mental psychological content, impressions of past events, habits, fixed mental and vital formations, fixed forms of character, and sends them up by an occult process to the waking consciousness, thus originating or influencing many activities of nature. Okay, I'll become very, very physical. I'll just mention a few things. There are many people who have odd physical habits. There are people who keep twitching, na? Okay? There is a very interesting film on our 1983, India won the World Cup in cricket. Okay, and one of the characters was a Tamil boy called Srikanth,
Right.
and he had this twitching habit. Even in the film, they have given that. Okay, he goes, his nose goes on twitching. We had many people. They have got all sorts of other habits. There are people who, before walking, they take 2 steps and come back. All sorts of physical things like that. All is coming from the subconscious. Okay? Even your thinking also, all comes from the subconscious. Whatever is happening is like stones being thrown into a pond. They don't disappear. They are there at the bottom. But the stones are heavy and they don't come up. But these things go on coming up. And that's the reason why it is so difficult if you want to really change your character. Sri Aurobindo had to come down into the subconscious and change that. Okay? And that's the most difficult thing to do. We go back to the poem, A God's Labor. Okay? He has to dig deep and clear all the mud and the muck from the subconscious. Then only the light can come in. So,
Like there is one little interaction between Nirod Baran and Sri Aurobindo where he is talking about things like consciousness and silence and everything, and he's just jokingly saying, you are talking about these things as if they are easily accessible, but they're not. Like I have to lay the groundwork, the wirings and the points from which you can enter and lay out the whole mapping for you to access it.
That's
It's
right.
not that easy. And Sri Aurobindo has done that. And he
That's-
also very nicely says that, you know,
all that we consider subtle and abstract is not subtle and
not
abstract. When he is writing poems, okay, I saw in Savitri the amber stairs of life. The children, the future children are coming down the amber stairs of light. So, stairs of light. So, why is he saying amber? So, he has explained in some places, and I have seen it as amber. It is real to me. Okay, when he talks of violet, when he talks of silver, gold, it's not imagination. He has actually seen it. And it's exactly like building a road in a virgin forest. And that's exactly what he has done. That is what is meant by when Sri Aurobindo has cleared the subconscious at a universe in himself, in the individual consciousness, it gets spread to the universal, and it becomes easier for the next man to go. It's like we are building tunnels now through the Himalayas to go to Ladakh, and they remain, and it becomes easy for the others to follow. So even in yoga, when some people have done something, it becomes much easier for the others. Exactly like once somebody has conquered Mount Everest, now everybody else can do it. It's exactly the same way.
right. Like over here, Sri Aurobindo is talking about, the material character, like the gene and the chromosomes can carry in them psychological elements.
That's right.
So there are so many letters of Mother and Sri Aurobindo where they are telling to the disciple that we are your parents now. And I feel that's such a important thing, because when you identify to them entirely, all of these habitual things that we inherit from our parents and family, it all gets broken, and you're identified to the truth, and then that can begin to imprint and
So what
govern
you are
your
saying,
life.
I'll put it in a slightly different way. It's the same truth. Satsang. Okay? Really, when you are all the time associating yourself with good company, these vibrations, okay, they go into the subconscious. So instead of filling your subconscious with all sorts of hard metal rock and wrong ideas and wrong vibrations, put right vibrations into it. That will be of huge importance to you. That is what is meant. So when Mother and Sri Aurobindo were your parents and you are constantly thinking of them, their vibrations are going into you, and that becomes your capital, your wealth afterwards.